From deep in the heart of Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast with Dustin Vaughn Warncke. Brought to you by Grim Reaper Broadheads. Watch them drop. Gold Tip, the toughest arrow you'll ever shoot. Gilly Monster Outdoors and Vapor Trail Outdoors. World-class hunting and fishing products. Striper Express with Bill and Chris Carey on Lake Texoma. Vineyard Max Deer Products and Warncke Enterprises, your full-stack digital and media production marketing agency with a specialty in the outdoors. Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for watching, reading, and listening to all of our content. I'm recording this on a video right now with a funny background here. Just basically giving an intro. Chester Moore's got a great white shark documentary coming out. It's going to release about the time that the 50th anniversary of Jaws is celebrated. And he will talk a lot about that in this show. All I want to tell you guys to start this off is that Chester's a good friend of mine. We are spiritual brothers. We are, we former co-workers, and I'm writing for the magazine again after about a 4 or 5 year hiatus when I went out of the industry. And it's great to be back. It feels like I'm back home again with some friends that I started all this with years and years and years ago. Back to SHOT Show 2013 is where I met Chester. So that just shows you how far, it just goes to show you how far it goes back. Anyway, I recorded this show earlier this week. I'm releasing it today just to kind of give you an idea of, some great things that Chester's doing in conservation. We talk about a lot of stuff in this show. So without further ado, there you go. We're going to start this off here in a second. And before, I'm not going to do an exit on this show or a bumper, outro bumper. You'll get the gist of how this works on the podcast itself, and just Chester and I interview well with each other. But I do want to just throw out there, if you're not following me on social media or whatever, if you need anything, the business side is Business with Dustin, or at Business with Dustin, or businesswithdustin.com. Creator side is Dustin's Projects, because I do a lot of different media projects and produce podcasts for other outdoors people. You got the Lost Rider podcast with Herman Brune. You've got Luke Catfish Radio with Luke Clayton and friends, and DSC's Campfires with Larry Wassoon. And I've had all of them, been on their shows. They've been on this show and everything like that. Going to release some new stuff from the Hunt Fish podcast as well. A lot of good stuff, but we decided to do a video for this one, and I'm glad we did, because Chester had a lot of things to show on this podcast. So I'm really excited about that. All right, thank you guys so much again for watching, reading, and listening. Since I'm not going to say it at the end of the show, check it out. Chester Moore, Dustin Warncke, have the best day ever. Chester Moore, welcome back to the Best of the Outdoors podcast. How on earth are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing good, brother. It's always an honor and privilege to be on here talking about our mutual passion for all things outdoors. And, the reason we're doing this particular show is sort of at that seamless level of passion for me. So I'm pretty excited.
I am too. So tell us a little bit about, we went an hour and 20 minutes in total with me talking the intro and outro of our last podcast we did on the show. So I will probably be less than that today, but I'll do it in an intro for you and everything again, of course. Tell us a little bit about what's coming out. What's this thing about sharks that you talked about on our last show together?
Yeah, so I got to talk a little bit in the last interview at the Hunt Fish Podcast Summit, but me and my friend Paul Fuzinski have a documentary coming out, the very first documentary in history on the return of great white sharks to the Gulf. And I'm super excited about it. I produced, wrote, narrated, starred in. Paul filmed and edited with his amazing skills. And it's a great piece of work. I made the final edit approvals yesterday, and it's rocking, man. And it's based around what I think is maybe the greatest, I know it is, it's the greatest fisheries ocean creature comeback in the Gulf since CCA saved the redfish.
Wow, so, that's powerful.
And it's a really cool story, and it involves me as a journalist, me as a little boy, but I'm only kind of like a narrator. I'm like a somebody who kind of like threads the story together.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about these sharks, and we have the top shark experts on the planet on great whites on the documentary. So it starts off with a friend of mine. It would have been about this time 20 years ago in 2005, having an encounter with the great white shark at a rig off of Sabine Pass, Texas, on the Texas-Louisiana border. And that path that sent me down of investigating great whites in the Gulf to now, because of the work of groups like the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy and OSearch, putting satellite and acoustic tags in these great creatures in the Atlantic, we're finding out a lot of them winter and spend quite a bit of time in the Gulf. And sort of the one that kicked it off was when Libeth, the 2,600-pound, 14.5-foot beautiful girl with a satellite tag, who was tagged, I believe the date was December the 8th, 2023, by Captain Chip Michaelov and Megan Winton from the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy at Hilton Head, South Carolina. That old girl made her way across the whole Gulf. And by February the 26th of 2024, she was 100 yards from the beach at South Padre.
Wow.
That is the first great white shark documented with a tag making it that far into the Western Gulf. OSearch had one that popped up about 130 miles out off of the Galveston sort of area further out, but which was really cool back in 2021. But this one not only came to South Padre, did what no other known great white had ever done, went down into the waters of Mexico in the Gulf, and then took a trip that went up the Texas Gulf Coast, across Louisiana, then out into the Atlantic, eventually up to Nova Scotia, which was incredible. But
that's a long trip, you know what I'm saying? As far as like, I mean,
it's amazing to have this tech. And what was cool is I turned my friend Ryan, the Captain Ryan Warhola, who had that encounter. He's still a charter. He was 18 when he had this experience. He was an 18-year-old charter offshore captain. He's only like 38 years old now. And I text him that this shark popped up. Well, the morning she popped up at Sabine, where I'm at, he beat me to the punch. And he texted me a screenshot. He goes, just to think they thought we were crazy 20 years ago. She's about 5 miles on that ping from the rig that I saw the one at. So cool story. It's got a lot of heart, a lot of drama, a lot of cool stuff, and the latest scientific research on great whites.
Before I ask my next question, I want to, when's the release date, first of all? So I need to make sure I get this podcast out.
Sir. June the 21st.
Okay, June the 21st. So we're in June when we're recording this. So that's great. Do you remember, Chester, one of our shows back in the day, the first, iteration of the Best of the Outdoors? We talked about things you may not, I forget exactly what the title of the show was, but things you may not know are in the Gulf. And the great white shark was one of them we talked about back then. Yeah. So correlate like how the film came together since that time. So I'm guessing we recorded that show, 2017, 2018? I can't remember.
But 2017, probably 2017. So
and really, I got interested to at least have the knowledge that existed, in that form back then. That I did not know that. Like, things that we did not know. Like we talked about some other species like marlin and some other things like that. Fish and that kind of stuff. Yep. So, we refer here in Texas to the Gulf Coast as the third coast a lot of times. I fish all three coasts. I know you've got a lot of fishing experience all over the world, but just the fact that we're bringing awareness to this through both of our media channel, work and our circles of influence. My goal of this show with is to help you get the word out, but also to just spread the awareness of what's out there. One of the best questions you ever asked in your editorial articles for Texas Fish and Game was what's out there. Your radio show, everything like that. I mean, that's the most thing that brings me back. That's the most important thing that brings me back to the outdoors every time with a passion of discovery, And I think we're kind of curious.
There's a moment like that in the documentary, and it goes back to childhood, like a lot of this stuff does. Mm-hmm. I saw my first shark, a live shark that was not in an aquarium. I saw my first shark I got to put my hand on and touch when I was 12 years old in Galveston on the 61st Street Pier. And me and my dad are out there fishing, and somebody next to us caught a bonnethead, which is a little like small cousin of the hammerhead. Mm-hmm. And it might as well have been a tiger shark. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
it was still either way. The difference was the same. Yeah.
And I remember that night very specifically. And I'm like looking out on the moon's rising up over the Gulf, and me and my dad are there. And I say, Dad, do you think there are any great whites out here? And he goes, maybe, son. Well, you know,
Maybe.
if you've gone a straight line from that pier last February, early March, because she took a week or so, Lee Beth, the great white, would have rolled right across there about probably 40, 50 miles out. So it's a very important question to ask. And you tapped into this very quick, and I salute you for that. That the real story of the great whites return, there's an ecological win here of a species that was depleted up to 80% in the Atlantic basin, and we're in that Atlantic basin of the Northwestern Atlantic. That's amazing. There's great ecological benefits. But look, I can talk all day to the general public about speckled trout in the Gulf. I can mention marlin in the Gulf, and they might not know that's pretty cool. I can even get them in sharks. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But when I say great white shark,
boom.
And what it does is, I wrote an article in Texas Fish and Game. I'm the editor-in-chief, still by the grace of God. I'm love the right for Texas Fish and Game.
Oh, I love it.
I wrote an article called The Forgotten Sea about the Gulf. And it was the fact that in mainstream wildlife media, whether it's, you know, whatever network, whatever, you know, web provider you're looking through, the only time you ever see the Gulf is if there's a hurricane or an oil spill.
You're right.
Now we have a chance to talk about a conservation win in the Gulf, get a lot of eyeballs in the Gulf, get other people to look at other sharks, other species, other issues, and start treating it like we should, to keep it clean, to keep it pollution free, and to make sure that we conserve our great resources here. And that's the real win of Carcharodon carcharias, the great white, popping back up in the Gulf.
That's the genus species. Am I saying that right from a wildlife biology thing, or is the?
Yeah, well, you know, science has to use Latin because we'll name something 97 different names. I have a blog, gulfgreatwhites.com. Go check out my website and blog.
Yep.
One best website by the Texas Outdoor Writers Association.
I was with you the night you won that award. Yes,
pretty happy.
Together a couple of times here this year.
Shark website, you know, first year shark website. Mm-hmm. But I wrote a blog with all the different names globally I could find for the great white, and
including Latin, right?
Including Latin. Pointer, it's white death. If you go to different countries, with different names.
Oh, okay.
And if you look at other animals, for example, the crappie, my favorite freshwater fish on the planet. I call it a crappie. But if I go into Oklahoma, it's a white perch. Mm-hmm. If I cross the border 5 miles from where I'm sitting right now into Louisiana, it's a sac-a-lay.
Sac-a-lay, which is the Cajun word.
And I don't know why, but Carcharodon carcharias, which I do believe means shark teeth, is the great white. And like I always thought, if I was a supervillain, I'd have chosen the name of the grizzly bear, which is Ursus horribilis. You know, so that'd have been like my supervillain name.
Yeah,
I think they PC changed that because they didn't want to make the grizzlies sound bad. So I'll go with Carcharodon carcharias if I ever get Bond villain money. You know.
There you go. Now I've got a couple of questions for you. Number one of the great heroes of conservation, you and I both have met in person at, I believe, the Houston Fishing Show when I worked for the magazine with you as associate publisher, Guy Harvey.
Yeah.
I not only a great artist in my new place here, I have the piece of the print that he signed for me. He has a Guy Harvey like signature, that's printed on there, but then he wrote his own, and what a unique signature and everything like that. But what a hero for conservation. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a Guy Harvey right behind me.
And that's why I wanted to do this, the video version of this podcast, because I thought that was really cool.
Second favorite shark, the oceanic white tip, which has a lot of conservation problems, an open ocean shark. And Dr. Guy Harvey is he's a hero of mine. I've got to know him pretty well.
I know.
He actually makes an appearance in the documentary.
I had a feeling he might. Now about that, the way all this started as far as the teeth on a great white compared to a mako or any of that, can you tell that story real quick, Justin?
Yeah, so the guy who saw the great white in 2005, he had a satellite phone. And I happened to know he was fishing offshore that day. Phone rings. I'm like, who is this? Pick it up. Hey, Chester, this is Ryan. And the question went immediately, what is the difference between a great white and a Mako's teeth? Because a great white, a poor beagle, a Mako, and a salmon shark, which is in like Northern Pacific, are in a certain family, and they look quite a bit alike at a certain size, like when they're up to like 7-8 feet long, right? Because Makos are not common, but they are not uncommonly seen by blue water fishermen. So I know Ryan's trying to go, is this a Mako or not? And I said, oh, great white has perfect triangles and a Mako's jangly teeth. He goes, oh my God, I'm looking at a massive great white. And we have this incredible interview with him where he talks about the whole sighting, where it happened. And what happened was the guys on the rigs were all pointing down when they pulled up to the rig, giant shark. And they put the rig hook on, put the chum slick out. When they put the chum line out, boom, dorsal fin pops up, and we have old great white swimming around the boat.
So they caught it like not on like a long line type deal, but they were out there. I mean, how did they acquire the angling part of this?
Oh, they didn't catch it. They just watched it for like an hour, swim around the boat.
Okay, wow.
And
so they just put the chum slick out there and observed.
They were trying to catch cobia, big cobia out there, and the chum slick. And it said it disappeared a few times and then popped back up. And there it was, and they got it. It came up and kind of mouthed. I believe it kind of mouthed the chum bag. And
I was going to ask how they saw the teeth because I thought they actually had it in the boat.
If a white shark is known when they chum and stuff, they'll come up out of the water sometimes and you see those old documentaries. But the way he kind of described it to me was kind of like come up on side view and kind of mouth the chum slick and what was coming out of it.
He could see the teeth.
And it was way too big. Like when he talked about the size of it, it was when he got home that day and he called me again, it was like, it was way bigger than a Mako girth wise.
Gargantuan shark.
It was what he described was seeing a 3,000-pound shark.
Good. Could you imagine putting one of those in the boat?
Oh,
man, there wouldn't be a boat. Like you'd need a yacht, or not even a sport fishing yacht. You'd need like something twice as big to be able to.
And the great part of this is, Jaws, my root in sharks came from Jaws, Jacques Cousteau Ocean Specials, and the videography and photography of Ron and Valerie Taylor. If you don't mind, I'm going to show you a picture real quick.
Go for it. Yeah.
So this book,
Rob, we're doing this on video. This is great.
It's been my favorite wildlife book since I was a kid. It's a Time Life series, Dangerous Sea Creatures.
That came out like when we were young, right?
Yeah. And they came out in the 70s, but they sold these all the way into the late 80s. And I have a complete collection over here. And this is actually a Ron Taylor great white photo right here.
How cool.
But when I think great white, literally my mind goes to this one photo. And it's funny because I brought this book over to a friend's house, and my friend is not a real outdoorsy type guy, but he likes sharks and stuff. These are pretty cool. And he remembered this book, and I pulled the book out. He goes, is that the one with the picture? And tell me that is an epic.
Oh my gosh.
Tell me that is the greatest of all time.
Yep. I get it.
Yeah, that's part of it. So this book, I looked at this book as a kid hundreds of times.
Is that the original that you had when you were a kid?
No, I don't really. I don't have that one anymore.
Okay.
I ended up getting, when I was a teenager, I found one at a used resale shop, and so I picked it up. Now what I do is I go on every thrift store. I have alerts out for all of these Time Life Wild World of Animal books.
Sure.
And at our Wild Wishes program, we give kids copies of the books.
That's great.
And I have about 10 copies of this for shark lovers, and I'm going to try to buy every one that's in existence I can get a hold of for other kids.
I'll be on the lookout on my eBay searches for you or anything like that.
Yeah, man.
Have an alert already set up.
Yeah, but that had a huge impact on me, and it made the world seem awfully big. It took a kid from a lower middle income house here in Orange, Texas. I still live in Orange, Texas, and showed me that there are things that I could possibly do. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I wanted to. I had such a burning heart for it. And that's part of the story too, is, we have this ministry where we bring the love of Christ to hurting children through wildlife encounters. We've been on shark encounters. We've been in shark cages with kids in an aquarium multiple times. It's really awesome. But part of what a message I'm trying to put across here is not every kid is going to be the quarterback. Not every kid is going to be the cheerleader. or in a church culture, the worship leader in the youth, right? There are kids in the back there. You know, our culture tells us if you're really beautiful, handsome, athletic, especially
throw a ball, yeah. We talked about throw any kind of ball.
Anything with a ball, you're good.
Anything with a ball, you're famous. Yeah.
And the rest of us are trash. And then when they see these people when they get an injury, or that girl who was the beautiful influencer gets pregnant, can't lose her weight. She's a piece of trash now too.
Yeah, she's throwing to the margins. Yep.
So they throw you out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to let people know one of the things is these kids that are like these other kids are just the regular people like us in the back. If this guy right here can have dreamed of seeing a great white from West Orange, Texas, in a little lower middle income house by a chemical refinery, and have been encountered great whites, I've cage dived with them in the Pacific. I've been with the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. Very graciously took us out to do a drone study with them in the Atlantic. I've seen great whites in the Atlantic and the Pacific. Anybody can do it. And I think a lot of these kids will latch on to that conservation message in a great way. So I have 3 of the kids in our program in the documentary.
That's amazing.
I wasn't going to do, I hate this where it's like, you always have this guys like on these hunting and fishing documentaries and stuff, or an ocean documentary. We need to stoke the fires of the next generation. And no one in the thing's under 40.
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing in this film to showcase that? I have that same problem, you know, and really it's just like, if you're going to advocate for that, you better show up with some ammo for the rifle. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to advocate that you're going to be like, we need this you are the beacon of hope, I think, in a lot of ways for the future of the outdoor industry. As far as one of the beacons of hope out there, as far as Christ Kids and Critters, you're giving kids the chance that they wouldn't have otherwise if you hadn't put all the blood, sweat, and tears into your ministry work and your wildlife conservancy, conservation work. And like, that's what I honor you for. You've always been my hero, even before we ever started working together. But I mean, I don't say that like lip service because you're a guest on this podcast again. But I mean, seriously. I know you give all the glory to God, but I mean, I'm just sitting there going, you've got the heart that we need more Chester Moores in this world, you know?
Well, man, thank you. That touches my heart, man. I want to help people, not just kids, people. But
same here.
Kids are my main focus. And so we got 3, we don't just work with kids that have necessarily horrible trauma. That's our focus. But we also have some kids that have wildlife interests we do mentoring with. And we got a couple of those kids. It's the coolest setup of kids. A girl named Erica Shea, a girl named Marina, who's now a first-year marine biology student.
You talked about her before, yeah, on the other podcast, yeah. Did we freeze?
Yeah, and then a kid named and Riz in the documentary, and it's so they're all part of this story. And when you hear the shark scientists talking that I interview, 2 of them go directly to being a kid and the important part of it, and Jaws and seeing a shark for the first time. So it's a shared story about something that's magnificent. And I want to let everyone know that, they can do great things for wildlife. They can do great things for sharks and for the ocean. And for those families that are watching, and you may have a kid that struggles, but man, they love sharks. They love the ocean. Please connect them with us and what we're doing. Connect them with what we're going to do with this documentary. Come to our event June 21st in Port Arthur, Texas at the Museum of the Gulf Coast. It's free, 10 to 2. And man, you're going to get to meet me, hang out with Paul Swizinski as well. He's going to be there. All 3 of the kids are going to be there. Free shark events. I'm even going to have a Megalodon booth set up.
Oh, that's going to be so cool.
Yeah. So
that's going to be
kids love the Megalodon. And I got some like some stuff about Megalodons and some pictures. We're going to set up a table for him with a Megalodon.
Megalodon. Oh, I love it. I'm going to try to get Jackson down there. I'll got to see if that's one of the weekends I have, because, I got pictures. I think I told you this privately over the phone or over text message. I've got pictures of me watching watching Jackson watch you, basically like just pictures of Jackson watching you that I'm taking from my vantage point when you're presenting at the TOWA, the Texas Outdoor Writers Association thing. And it was just like, he was like, I just let it happen. I just saw the sparkle in his eyes once you started talking about sharks. I didn't tell him much. I wanted to be kind of like that youthful discovery thing at 15 years old that I had, about the outdoors. And my dad would always joke around that I love fishing so much that he gave me a glass of iced tea and told me that there was a fish in there. I would find a way to catch it, I caught my first fish when I was 2 years old out of a minnow bucket. You know what I'm saying? So technically I caught my first, my dad always tried to make it like relatable and fun, and you do the same thing with the kids in your life, certainly with your daughter as well.
Yeah, it's funny about my daughter Faith because she's oddly enough a late bloomer on really being into wildlife, but she is, and she never had too much of a shark interest until this Leebeth shark popped up, and I got her to she downloaded the Sharktivity app, which I highly recommend from the Land at White Shark.
Sharktivity, okay, that's good to know.
And then download Shark Tracker from OSearch, and my daughter is like all about these AWSC sharks because she found a couple of them's names. And and what was cool is one of the sharks that was named on their database that she followed popped up in front of us in Cape Cod while we were there.
Wow. So that's good timing.
He freaked out. And now I have a blog up at gulfgreatwhites.com. Leebeth, her battery died on the satellite tag. They had an issue. They got her up to Nova Scotia, but see, they also have acoustic tags, and they're all around the oceans. I've learned this. There are these acoustic stations that when these tags come by, it sends a signal. And they can last up to 10 years. And then they'll download them once, twice a year, whatever. And then they're put in a database, I believe, for all these different scientific organizations. It ain't just sharks. It might be marlin. It might be, I just heard of one from Permit from Florida. Well, guess who popped up in November down in Cape Cod? Leebeth, making her way back down to the south. She probably came back to Texas. We just didn't know. She didn't come by one of the acoustic things, but fun stuff. And that's a great way for kids to engage with this.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. The apps, everything's native and digital, as far as apps on our smartphones and everything like that. So as we kind of wrap things up here, or, whatever else you want to talk about, certainly, but we've got kind of the meat and potatoes here about the film and what it's about and everything like that. I wanted to talk about something to kind of throw you a curveball. Is that okay, Chester?
Uh-oh, curveball. Yes, let's go.
Yeah, it's not really a curveball. It's just more about like man's, effect on things like you talked about earlier with oil spills or hurricanes, right? Yeah. So obviously hurricanes are natural. Oil spills are more of a man-made thing. Deepwater Horizon, which was off the coast of Louisiana. Now, they made a movie about that back in 2010, and I kind of found that fascinating, that how every time we've had an oil spill, salt water seems to cleanse itself. Of course, we've got some stuff on the land-based, marine wildlife and waterfowl and that kind of stuff that we've got to clean off with, the soap and everything like that. But I mean, like, it's interesting how salt water kind of like it's its own cleanser, like it's its own equalizer in a lot of ways, as far as like, no matter, I wanted to see your thoughts on that as far as like what my thoughts are on that.
Well, I'm not an expert in that field at all. I will say this.
We're having a casual conversation on this one. I'm not expecting you put you on the record.
I was in Venice, Louisiana, like 2 years after that happened, and it happened not too far from Venice out there.
Yeah, I know. That's why I fished Venice twice. And I remember that. Yeah.
And so I was kind of there in the aftermath of it. And it goes back to what I said. The Gulf doesn't get attention unless it's an oil spill or a hurricane.
Or a hurricane, yeah.
But the problem a lot of the people were concerned with the most in the aftermath was the chemicals they were putting on to deal with the oil itself.
Yep.
And the oil spill is bad enough. It does cause immense damage. But they were very concerned in the aftermath of that. And there are mysterious things that happen in the aftermath that, like, you can't exactly put a finger on, but there were multiple sperm whales that washed up dead in a couple years in odd places. They
couldn't explain why, right?
Yeah, other weird stuff going on.
Just strange things, yeah.
But I think the interesting thing, there was a Gulf-wide survey of marine species after the Deepwater Horizon, and it actually revealed maybe the greatest shark mystery I've ever heard in my life. That in this survey, and I don't have the details in front of me, but it was because of the survey, there were Greenland sharks found in the Gulf. There were a couple of Greenlands that live under the ice sheets in Greenland.
I was about to say it's pretty cold if you're living under ice as a shark. Yeah,
living under ice. And there's a couple of these suckers. They probably took the jet, like the jet stream down or whatever.
Right.
They're like,
easier to swim that way.
They're like, man, our relatives have been lying to us about this Gulf. This ain't too bad. It's warm up in here, man.
That's right.
And they're probably like, the only weird part is there's no seals to kill. So we got, what are we going to kill and eat? Let's start eating crabs.
Do your shark thing, man. Yeah.
But, I think it goes, Deepwater Horizon is just a symptom of, look, I'm not a hypocrite. I use oil. I drove in a petrochemical fueled vehicle to get here. We got to have it. Hopefully we'll find some other things, but I think it goes to holding accountable.
Yeah. And that could have been that whole deal. If you look at the history of it, there's a documentary you could probably find on YouTube called Pretty Slick, which is all about the documentary of that. Then there's the movie with Mark
accountable
and everything.
And not being afraid to say, interestingly, people will get mad in some circles if you say something that says like you're for the environment.
Right.
And which I find mind-boggling. And I had someone call my radio show one time, and I was talking about and mainly it was a fishing and hunting radio show. And but I talked about wildlife every show, whether it's I might have just seen a rattlesnake, and I talked half an hour about a rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. And those shows got the most people interested, by the way.
Of course.
But I was talking about this water issue, and it was a health thing that was going on. Someone called, and they were like, it's always this voice, it's like, I knew you were them environmentalists and trying to stop. I said, hold on a second. I'm a very conservative person, Jim, but I don't think having clean water is a conservative or a liberal issue.
It's not.
I said, by the way, on this particular issue I'm talking about, there are people in MD Anderson Cancer Hospital who would love to have, had better environmental care of the area of the water they drank because of this spot in this area.
Yeah.
So it's a human issue. These are human issues. I hate things that divide people.
Yeah, human issues. It's not political so much. Who doesn't want to have clean water for your grandchildren's children? You know what I'm saying? In the future,
I am this close to just taking all politics off of my radar.
Yeah.
Because of the ludicrous nature of it. Of course, I always vote, but like it gets crazy. But I think that with this great white shark thing in return, it's a great chance to put a positive look at the Gulf, mm-hmm. but also a concerned look. Let's take the mistakes of the past and move to the future.
Right.
Keep things clean, not destroy our fisheries. Great whites were protected from harvest in 1997. And the problem with great whites is it takes them 25 to 30 years to be sexually mature.
Yeah.
You start killing these big apex predators, and it takes them generations to come back. And that's what we're seeing. We're starting to see a generation of great whites since the harvest, almost 30 years, where we have generations that have come out of protected from harvest, and we're seeing the results because of science-based management. And that's what I promote, science-based management of fisheries and wildlife. And hey, I fish. I love fishing.
Yeah. Sure, I did too. I'll fish with you. We fished together a few times now. So yeah.
It's illegal to harvest a great white, but I would love to be reeling in like a tuna.
Yeah, sure.
And a big great white come up and eat that. So I'd be thank you. I won't take my another tuna. I'm happy. My day has been made. I saw a giant great white shark on the line. But it's a good thing, and I highly, if you can, come out to the event. And make sure and check out, it'll be on the Chester Moore Wildlife Journalist Investigator YouTube channel. We put a lot of social stuff. Follow me at the Chester Moore on Instagram. Higher Calling Wildlife is Chester Moore Higher Calling Wildlife on Facebook. And my blog at highercalling.net and gulfgreatwhites.com.
Absolutely. This is great. This has been a great, and really, it's funny how this interview worked because like I was mentioning Deepwater Horizon to try to get out of you like the environmentalist story and that kind of stuff, as far as like, no, I care about clean water. And that's exactly what you did. It's funny how we've interviewed each other so many times that we kind of like know what how to get it.
It's a great, you always do great interviews, man. And it's interesting to me that, like I'm a person, I want clean water for everything, for my family, for me, for wildlife, for agriculture, all the things that we do out there.
Well, and then you look at, where do solar panels go? Where does the wind energy stuff with the turbines from the wind turbines? Where do they go when they have to be disposed? So what is really clean energy? And that's one of the things I talk about with Herman Brun on the Lost Rider podcast that just recently launched. Like, he asked those questions to people who are, in power of those kind of things. Like, what, because nobody that really can answer that question well, as far as like, oh, this is sustainable clean energy, versus oil, which is kind of like, put in a different light and that kind of stuff. But I was just like, there's no easy answers to a lot of these questions, but really bringing to light to bring this all back home to, the Great White Shark, putting the Gulf Coast, the Third Coast, kind of more back on the map, as far as, really bringing it to more than just hurricanes and oil spills and that kind of stuff. I think that, you're doing this is incredible work, Chester. So my hat's off again to you.
No, man, thank you. And I appreciate it, and, honestly, it was great working with Paul on this. He has such a great skill set for editing and filming, made it come to life in an incredible way. Really smart guy. And we've won several awards together on documentaries. Here at TOWA, we won for the Finding Hope in Yellowstone. And we swept it. We took second place with the documentary on discovering bighorns, and then his Hunt Within. But I just got to salute people who were the forefathers of all this. You're
right.
Ron and Valerie Taylor, Jacques Cousteau, all these great Eugenie Clark, the shark, shark lady we talk about, all these great shark people.
And then Dr. Guy Harvey, we talked about earlier,
and people like Dr. Greg Skolmall, my friend Dr. Megan Winton of the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, my friend John Tominski with OSearch, AWSC, the Moten Marine Lab, all the people doing great work on sharks and fisheries, and then just fisheries in general and habitat groups like CCA, Coastal Conservation Association. So a lot of
NGOs that are pitching together to help, the future of oceanic wildlife, oceanic marine life.
So they're doing incredible work, and there's some great stuff. And I'm just happy to celebrate a big win for conservation, a personal journey of mine and a couple other people, and hopefully something to inspire people to know that great things can still happen in their life. And as I say at the end of the documentary, that the apex predator of the Gulf isn't really the hammerhead. It's not the bull shark. It's Carcharodon carcharodon, the great white. There we go.
I love it. And so then this also, just last thing here real quick, this also coincides with the 50th anniversary of a very famous movie.
Oh man, dude, Jaws.
50 years it's been since that came out. That was now you were alive back then, but I was not. I was still yet to be born.
I was a year and a half.
Okay, fair. I know you were young, but I was just saying,
a year and a half.
You lived through that.
I didn't see it till probably 1980 or something.
Yeah, when we were old enough to understand.
I think I saw Jaws 2 first because it was running on TV. But I like Jaws 2. It's actually really good. But Jaws, look, I'm gonna just say this because I'm a fanboy. I got to go to the Jaws bridge where they filmed the bridge scene where he attacks the not parasailing, but the guy sailing over there, and where the beach where the kid got attacked, which is the scariest scene in the whole movie.
Yeah,
and Captain Robert Shaw's performance as Captain Quint is mind blowing, and his monologue about the USS Indianapolis was incredible. Richard Dreyfuss, Roy Scheider.
Absolutely. He killed it in that.
Amazing. And
the producer of that one was what? Spielberg? Was that a Spielberg movie?
Spielberg was the director.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
John freaking Williams did the score.
Yeah.
And you're talking to a guy who has a great white shark tattoo and Darth Vader right here. So this is the guy that did Jaws, Indiana Jones, E.T., and Star Wars.
Brings it all in together, yeah.
And I got to see him do a symphony live at the Hollywood Bowl, and he did the Jaws score. So that was really cool.
That's great.
He did Star Wars, of course, but fun. And this is what you're smiling, I'm smiling, and we need more of this in our life. And this is what it's all about. It's a serious conservation issue. We're talking about
absolutely. Yeah,
but
we talked about some serious stuff, but fun.
Yeah, fun, this is all about. And I'll just kind of, as we part ways here for this particular show, I'm gonna leave you with a semi-poignant moment. It was fun. So me and Paul are done with our interviews with Atlantic White Shark Conservancy people. We've been out and I had one of the best days of my life looking at great white sharks in the Atlantic. And I'm not leaving here until I go across the ferry, like 45 minutes to Martha's Vineyard,
Mm-hmm.
And because they filmed Jaws in Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's cool.
And Amity is in Martha's Vineyard. And so we go there, and I go to the Jaws Bridge, and we go to this beach, and it was all really just like, there have been a few moments that have happened in my life where I almost felt like I was walking into my imagination as a kid. Like the moment I caught up with my imagination, like I was there, and that was one of those powerful moments. So here's where it hit me. Before we ever got to Martha's Vineyard, we're in Woods Hole in Massachusetts on Cape Cod. Beautiful, beautiful area. Great taco place I found there, and there's seals and stuff. It's like, it's freaking cool. And we're going across, and I happen to look behind me, and it says Oceanographic Institute, kind of hidden in the view. In Jaws, Captain Matt Hooper, Richard Dreyfuss' character, shows up on the scene and says, "I'm Matt Hooper from the Oceanographic Institute on the mainland. It's a real place." And I was leaving the mainland to go to Amity, where Jaws was filmed, and saw the real thing. It was very surreal, very cool.
Whoa,
very
that is so neat, man.
Yeah. And so when we went back, I went in. They had a little gift shop that was open for like 15 more minutes, and I got Lisa a shirt. They didn't have on my size. They had like a Oceanographic Institute shirt.
You were a common size too. Gosh, anyway, yeah, I got.
So it was very cool, fun stuff, and that's what it's about, man. It's about having fun and supporting great conservation.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that you've really lit my fire again now that I've kind of entered back in the industry the last year, and for business and creative work and everything. And I'm just so fired up, and you were one of the catalysts for that. And I just want to thank you again for all that you do to inspire and to give hope and purpose and meaning and significance to really, when I think about you, you know what I think about Chester? I think about Chester is an advocate for those who can't speak for themselves. And that is our wildlife. That is our fisheries,
I appreciate that, man, because
that's so true. I mean, that's what really conservation is about, is advocating for those that can't, that have no voice.
I was never the silent kid in class, but I was always the one. I was quite often the one that was getting marginalized, bullied at times, all those kind of things. So I understand those kids. I wasn't going to be the head, I wasn't going to be the football guy. I wasn't,
I was a band guy, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I was a band guy. I started a metal band. So that was my,
I know you did that.
These people, I'm going to start a metal band. Metallica's cooler than
we don't have any trombones in the metal band.
Yeah, man, come on. Slayer doesn't have a horn section, but anyway, look, it's for everybody, but in my heart, it's always for the ones sitting in the very back. That's who I'm always talking to.
I love that. The ones that are on the margins, just like a very famous man that you and I both follow.
Amen.
Anyway, thank you again for your time, and looking forward to it, man. I'm gonna try to make the event. Encourage everybody to come and make the event. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today, man.
Hey, it's always an honor. Thanks for taking some extra time to have me on the podcast. Great stuff. Thank you for being a good friend.
Same here, buddy.